Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Patreon podcast. This week I wanted to talk about a term that's popular with the kids back in 2019 called mind flooding. It's really kind of choice paralysis, where you have so many options and so many things going on that you can't really make any particular decision. And I feel that 2020 as a year has been particularly good at offering many opportunities for us to be mind flooded. And I think that it's just really something that we have to learn to recognize as artists, because it's not something that really goes away. There's always going to be distractions. There's always going to be multiple things happening in the world and in your personal life that just need to either be distanced from or ignored for a while you handle some particular task. And I know there are people out there who are very good at managing multiple things at the same time or multiple projects, but not everybody's like that. Me personally, I tend to get mind flooded really easily, where if I have two things happening at once, sometimes I'm just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to watch Netflix today, which is not healthy for a lot of reasons. But I also think that it's just important for me to kind of understand when this is happening. And I've been able to pinpoint more frequently when I run into issues like this, where I know that I'm starting to become paralyzed by too many choices or too many things happening at the same time. I guess it's not really choice paralysis. It's just kind of an overload of things happening. It's kind of like a stimulation overload, where this year is a really good example for that, where it's just like, we're in a lockdown. We have so many things happening that like affect us mentally. And also we have a day job possibly. And we have the side gigs that we're working on, and we have this deadline that's happening. It's just like there's so many things to juggle at once that it's easy to just feel like there's nothing that can be done to make an impact on this pile of work or mental issues that are in front of us. And that's when things like depression can seep in and a lot of other things like that are bad and shouldn't be endorsed. But I feel that it's just something that kind of like with depression, though, I feel that it's something that just needs to be, you need to be aware of, you need to be mindful of that kind of stuff. And it sneaks up like just about everything else, but it's important to have an understanding of when you're getting mind flooded, because then you can start to work against it. And finding ways to work against it is personal, but it's also something that can be there's a lot of different ways that work for me, and I'll get into some of that right now. I mean, really, kind of the big one for me is just making lists. I'm a real big list maker. I like making lists, and I realize that when I'm not making lists, that's generally when I'm getting mind flooded, because there's too many things going on, and I just can't be bothered to put it all down on paper. But when I do make lists, I try to make them manageable and I try to make them completable. And I've talked about that in a prior episode, where if you make a list that you can't physically complete in the day, like what's the point of making that list then? You're essentially making like a list of priorities, but you don't get the satisfaction of actually completing them. And it's important to be aware of that, where you need to make things broken down to a point where it's actually completable on a daily basis. So I use Trello for my kind of macro lists, where I have all the big things that I need to complete, but then I have pencil and paper for my daily lists, the things that I need to do today. And some of that's really basic, like take a shower or do some push-ups, things that keep me active and moving, and, like a general human being. But I also have, the projects that I need to work on at the moment and all the other things that are important to continue that creative momentum forward. So if you feel like you're getting mind flooded, if you feel like you're getting paralyzed by just the environment that you're in and the world that you're in. It's important to try to take a step back and be mindful of the priorities. And finding those priorities is really hard, because the problem with the world right now, one of them anyway, is that everything is kind of marketed as a priority when it really isn't. As much as I like keeping up on local news and even global news, like that stuff's important, but it doesn't necessarily affect me directly on a daily basis. And I try to keep apprised of the news and all that other stuff. And the news is a really big one for me, like news and gossip and stuff like that, where it's just like, oh, this celebrity married. It's like, who cares? But it's also kind of important to keep up on, because sometimes that stuff's interesting or entertaining or whatever. But it's like there's just such a deluge of things happening all the time, and cutting that stuff out of your life can be really beneficial when it comes to just being able to take a breath, and having the ability to just not worry about that stuff. And maybe this is like where this might be coming from a position of privilege, where I don't have to worry about this stuff as much. Whereas if you're worried about like losing your health insurance or something like that, then obviously you need to keep more engaged with the news and try to raise awareness for that stuff. And it's like the waters are so muddy. But I feel like there's probably things out there that you can work on if you're starting to feel mind flooded, that you can work on just kind of distancing yourself from for a little while. And that doesn't mean forever. It just means for a little while. And like Twitter is a really big one for me too. I love Twitter. I think that it's a great platform where I can meet people and converse and all that other stuff. But it's also incredibly easy to get completely flooded there, where either the trending topics are super politicized, or it's just obnoxious. Like the game dev community can be really obnoxious sometimes, where they're just talking about how this one platform is ruining games for artists, or this one company is it's just drama and gossip and stuff that I realize is happening, and then I try to avoid it. But it's just like, it's so easy to get wrapped up in that stuff, and then all of a sudden you've just wasted like 2 hours just diving down this rabbit hole that really doesn't benefit you or your life in any way. And yeah, like I'm not trying to be like, you need to live in a hut in the woods without internet or you're never going to be a creative, that's not what I'm talking about. And just like, you need to find those pressure points for you specifically, because they are there. And there are things that just engage your mind that don't really need to be engaged. And for me, it's like game dev stuff and some political stuff on Twitter. And it's just like, I tend to dive down these rabbit holes, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, oh God, I just wasted 20 minutes and now I just feel worse. It's like junk food. So don't do that. I mean, yeah, just try to find those pressure points for you, and just try to be aware of when those pressure points are actually being pushed. Because I've found that having a clear mind and actually being happy, or at least not depressed or sad, can really go a long way in your creative work. Even though the Moon Seems Unaffected is a fairly dark and apocalyptic album, I was in a fairly good place for, probably half of it. This year has been pretty rough, and I'm sure everybody would agree that this year has been pretty rough for pretty much everybody. But like when I'm in a good mood, it doesn't matter if I'm writing depressing music. If I'm in a good mood, I'm in a better place to actually express the feelings that I want to. And even though those feelings might be a little bit more grim, that doesn't mean that I have to be sad to do it. Generally, when I'm sad, I don't want to make music. And then when I'm not making music, I'm not expressing myself. And then all of those feelings just get kind of bundled up and not really put out into the world. So I don't have a way to express it, because I don't always get to use my words as well as I'd like. And that's on me. Yeah. Anyway, I think that I've kind of talked about this enough. But if you have questions about this, feel free to reach out in the comments section or on Twitter or any of the other ways that I have accessed points to talk. Oh my God, I forgot how words work. But yeah, get in touch. I'm happy to talk about this more, but just, I feel this is a really important topic that doesn't get talked about very much, especially these days when everything is just all up in your face all the time, and it's so easy to get flooded. So thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week. Thank you so much for supporting me on Patreon. It means a lot to me. And I hope that you have a wonderful day. Take care and be remarkable.